Hi, I'm Terrell Turner, the host of the Business Talk Library, and today I have another great interview. And this one I'm excited about because, as you'll hear from his story, Dimitry has been involved with technology and networking from the early days of when it started to even present day. So one of the things that I think you'll get a lot of value is how he learned how to pivot as technology changed, because that's something that a lot of business owners and a lot of professionals are trying to figure out now. How do you pivot as the technology is constantly changing? So Dimitry Ortiz, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks, Terrell. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate the opportunity of being here today and being part of the show.
Absolutely. So Dimitry, tell us a little bit about kind of your background before you got into freelancing.
Okay, so my background starts from 1998. I had graduated high school in 95. I went to Europe for a couple of years, came back after a classical mission. And I really didn't have a direction. You know, in high school, I had been great in debate. I was a debate national champion. So I was supposed to go into law because I love communications. I came back with 3 languages, you know, spoken languages. And so therefore, communications has been a forte for me since the beginning. So you would have thought that I was supposed to go into law, you know, or something of the kind where litigations and you know, a lot of communication abilities should have been the field of choice. But when I came back in 98, I didn't really have a solid, I hadn't made a decision yet into where my career was going. I hadn't chosen a university yet. And so luckily I had my brother-in-law that my sister's husband is Dominican. He was living in New York, and he's like, hey man, I can get you going with computers if you're interested. And I was like, well, you realize I wasn't brought up in a home that even had a computer. And this is the reason why I love sharing this, you know, this story, because many think that they need to be, you know, I'm here to break trends, because see, many people think that you need to come out of like the Big Bang Theory show. You know, you need to be kind of like eccentric. You need to be kind of geeky. You need to be nerdy. That's not true. That's not true, because as you can see, everything has evolved. Everything has changed. Video games has overlapped even from types to genders, you know, people, socioeconomics. I mean, it doesn't matter. Technology has affected us in many ways. Smartphones have become more powerful than what computers were when I started. So as you can see, I'm here to tell you, you know, you don't need to fit a certain type of personality to get into technology, because again, like I said, I was a very extrovert. I was, you know, I'm a dancer, so I was very popular in my high school. I was known by everyone. So I didn't fit the technical side of the social aspect of it. But because my brother-in-law gave me this opportunity to come to New York, and he said, hey man, I'll give you the opportunity to learn about computer networking. And I can just tell you what books to get and get certified, and you'll get a job within months. And I was like, are you serious, man? He's like, trust me, brother, I can do it. So I was like, okay, man, I'm going to trust you, because this sounds like an exciting opportunity. So I took it. I didn't have anything else to do. So I went to upstate New York, Syracuse. And I remember borrowing money from my mom. I got myself a stack of books that was just like huge. The MCSE, Microsoft Certified System Engineers series, a series that taught about networking. And it's interesting because all I had was 2 towers, like very old computer towers. And I hooked them up together. And I started playing around with the operating system. I started learning about the hardware, which is the first thing you kind of get into when you start in this kind of, when you go into systems engineering, you know. Most of the people like to tinker around with, you know, with computers. And that's another thing that I wanted to just, as I'm going, I wanted to remind people that technology has many things, many aspects. If you're somebody that likes to use your hands, hardware is a great field to go into, because you're like, you know, fixing things, you're putting things together, you're taking them apart, finding pieces, troubleshooting. And so that was one of the first things that I started. I started to learn about hardware, but only, like I said, only 2 old computers. And so I took out the pieces, looked at the motherboard and all those things. And so I learned that, you know, I got an A+ certification book as well. It's a big old Bible that was like, I mean, we're talking about these books, man. If you throw that book, you're going to hurt somebody. So they were huge books. And so so yeah, so I started, learning every day, reading from books, just trying to absorb everything. And everything was just like alien to me because, again, I didn't grow up in a home that had a computer. And so shortly but surely, 6 months later, man, I had gotten some certifications. I had, gotten some training from my brother-in-law. And because I had the communications, I went ahead and he's like, hey, there's an opening. You should go for it. There's a company that needs a network technician. So I was like, okay, you know what? This is my time to shine. Let's do it. So I went directly to the IT director, and he interviewed me. And I said, listen, I know about this, and this. I know about how networks work, how you connect the systems, how it's a new technology. And I can do this for you. I've done it before. And what I had done is connected two PCs with a wire. That's all I've done. So, but the knowledge was there, I mean, maybe not in hands-on, but, the theory was there. And so, hey, I just trusted in my work ethic. I trusted the fact that I knew I had, I can learn things. And so, my confidence and my attitude got me the job because I convinced them. I sold myself into that I could do the job that needed to be done.
Awesome.
Next thing you know, I'm on my first job as in the IT world, working in 1998. So
Awesome.
That's how it started.
So when you think about kind of, where the world of technology was when you started to now, like, is there any aspect of like the growth of development that just had you like, wow, I didn't see that coming, or hey, I didn't expect it to go that route?
Actually, I want to talk the other way around. I want to share the fact that that I actually knew what was happening or was going to happen 20 years ago, because many people are talking, for example, I'm not going to cover it yet. I'm going to cover it later. But for example, things that are taking over businesses, job markets, and everything. It's the fourth industrial revolution that people are not understanding that's happening. So in other words, we're talking about computer systems and software taking over fields, taking over, businesses. And mainly one of the main things that we're talking about, Terrell, right now is automation and robotics. Those are the things that are taking over. Well, people think that it's the new thing because all of a sudden with AI and machine learning and all these new technologies that are emerging, they think that it's a new thing that's happening. That's all of a sudden we're going to implement AI and all of a sudden things are going to change a lot. Well, let me tell you about automation. The same job that I told you that I started as a network technician, months later, the network administrator left to another company. I think he went to Chicago. And the next person that knew the best thing, because I was the one that ran around and, did the installations, troubleshooting. He was just kind of like managing, right? Like monitoring. What I was doing the hard work from the bottom up, Excuse me. So I understood the network. And guess what? When he left, I was promoted. So within a year, I was the network administrator. In other words, I was responsible for all the servers, all the infrastructure, everything for the company. So I was doing that part. The company had a lot of money, because it was one of those days where they were the biggest freight company in the East Coast. So they allocated pretty good money for their technology. So what did I do? I went for the greatest and best at the time, And I remember, and this is the reason why I want to tell you the story. I found a software that allowed us, because it was a trucking company, they used to have the paper work, right? They had the bill ladings and stuff like that. And they had to have people, ladies, that specifically ladies in offices doing data entry, manual data entry. Okay, so they would have to look at the paper, look at the information, and actually type it in to the mainframe, as I mentioned earlier, the green screens, With this software that I implemented, and we're talking about in the year 2000, we're talking 20 years ago, Terrell. I implemented a software that allowed us to scan the image, scan the paper and make it into an image. And there was a software that did, I guess you would describe it as screen scraper, which in other words, it would read what it was on the screen. In other words, you were able to scan the image and read the information and automatically load it up into the system. Well, it was from about 23 ladies to 2 girls. 2 girls that all they were doing is scanning the images, scanning the paper, and everything else the software was taking care of. I was just automating everything and everything. So, at the moment I was a hero. I brought the technology that needed to be brought in, and I brought the solutions. I saved money, I saved time, efficiency, you name it. You know what I didn't recognize, Terrell? that over 21 ladies that went home from working over 20 years in the company, that
Wow.
were their services were no longer needed.
Wow. Wow.
So this is more than 20 years ago, Terrell. This is the reason why I'm telling you. I'll tell you the other way around. I saw a lot of things that evolve, but automation is not a new thing.
Hmm. So now when you think about that, I mean, just seeing the evolution of, like I said, or guess, like say, the evolution of technology and what technology, or guess what people are realizing what technology can do. Because I agree. I think I took a job when I did an internship when I was in high school. And that was one of my jobs. I worked in the mailroom and we were converting the mail, I guess, all the files and the records and the bank records, going from hard paper to scanning them in this machine to getting it automated, to where that was what my job was for about a year of, sitting in the bank vault, scanning documents, to where, like you said, it's something that started a long time ago, but people are now starting to realize and feel the effects of it. But as you think about that, what are some of the skills, or I guess, or are there opportunities or ways that people can start to learn more about the technology so that they can refine or pivot or shift their skills to learn something new?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's one of the messages I've been trying to share on LinkedIn, for example. Some of my content is actually gearing towards there because, again, like I said, 20 years ago, I feared programming. To be honest with you, I'll be the first to admit it. I like systems because systems, you have the GUI, in other words, the graphical user interface. You can click here, click there, and read the screen, and you don't really know what's happening really in the background. It's just that you're clicking away, and that's how things are happening, right? Well, with the technology now, as you can see, sorry, in now, what people are understanding is that those clicks are commands, and once you can write those commands into a script, what you would call a script, or an API, which is something new, which is application programming interface. Now you can automate, in other words, program a task, as opposed to before had to be done by human beings. And so programming is what's creating this option and opportunity to be able to, again, write the code that you need to automate your job, especially, and this is specifically on accounting, for example. Accounting was something that had to be done by hand. Many of the processes were done by humans, and now we're recognizing that some programming, not even that in depth, can create things and make them happen a lot quicker, and that's what programming does. And another thing that we are looking at is that businesses are going online now. We're the online population now. We live online. We don't watch TV anymore. We don't go in other places. I mean, we're literally online most of the time. And people, because of the mobile devices, this new culture has arisen. So you need to be online now, not just physically on the store. And so it's creating a necessity for you to use more software into your processes, into your tasks, in your businesses. And that's what people need to understand, that programming can do that for you. And even as an entrepreneur, you can start, for example, this is my message that I bring. For example, there are places where you can start learning HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and that gives you the whole front end. In other words, you start to understand how to create websites, and the websites now are being interactive, because before websites were very static. You were just like click, click, and it was like, a window here, a window there. Now applications are being used as a web-based software. In other words, things are happening inside the browser, what it used to not be that way. Before, you needed to have a computer, and you needed to have the software installed locally, and you needed to understand it and give it some information in order for you to install it and configure it. Nowadays, everything's already, like, for example, an example of web-based software is, for example, Gmail. Now you can have your mail read in almost any device that has a browser. Does that make sense? And so those are the things that are happening now that they used to not be there 20 years ago. Does that make sense? Before, you work too much. A lot of people were working only on computers. If you were browsing the web, you had a computer. Now, since 2014, things have shifted. For example, the sales of computer desktops has decreased now, and now there's more mobile devices being sold. And so people are viewing the internet through means of a browser and through a mobile device as opposed to in a computer or with some program. Does that make sense? And so things are changing quick and drastically. Does that make sense? And those are the things that business owners, entrepreneurs, and people that may have, there are some fields that are dying, like printed media. You know what I mean? It's like if that was your specialty, it was good about 20 years ago, but no longer the case. And so we need to pivot into technology. In other words, we should understand it, because again, like I said, I think we've left it too much to the IT world to worry about technology. I think that nowadays, if you're an entrepreneur that doesn't understand a little bit of software, you're left, in a very disadvantage, in a big disadvantage, because that means that you don't understand the technology that is coming out. You don't know how to use the technology to your advantage. You don't know how to implement it and to come up with ways in order to make your work more efficient, faster, a lot cheaper and stuff. So those are the things that I think people can start looking into programming, because it will change their lives and it will change their businesses.
Yeah. Now, so if you're a person that has, no kind of programming background and no technology background, where do you think they would be a good place for them to start? I mean, when it comes down to learning programming.
Again, like I mentioned, I think that the path that I've taken, I think, is one of the simpler ones. See, when it comes to programming, you have your front end and you have your back end.
Okay.
The back end programming has to do with the server side. In other words, a little more complex. You're talking about systems. The front end is what is pretty much websites, web-based stuff that you can see. So I would believe that when you're starting with programming, in my opinion, it would be easier for you to learn, for example, HTML, just to understand the hypertext markup language, the structure of a web page, for example. That's something that you use. That's something that you understand, that you look at every day. So when you start to look at the back, under the hood of a website, the first thing you see is HTML. Okay. So if you learn HTML, which is not that complex because it's pretty much just a structural language, it tells you where you put your things. Okay, you can start to understand the web. And if you understand the web, that's a great place to start. Then you can work your way up to styling those web pages, and then you can move on to JavaScript or something similar to that language that starts to show you how they function, how things work. And once you get to that level, you can start going into the back end and become a full stack developer.
Okay, gotcha. Now, if a person wanted to become a full stack developer, how much time, like if they went from not knowing much about technology to wanting being a full stack developer, how much time would that probably take? I guess in the normal case, would it take to develop that skill set?
Nice. Well, as you may understand, there may be bias and there may be different perspectives. You're talking to somebody that has self-taught himself how to be a programmer and how to become a software engineer. And that's the reason I think my answer definitely will be different from someone that, even though I went to school, they didn't really teach me how to program. I didn't come out as a programmer, even after having a computer science degree. So let me just make sure you understand that the degree does not make you a programmer. That degree, that just tells you that you went through a process that had classes that kind of, gave you the idea what programming is. But programming is done more in your self-study. That's the reason why I want people to understand that somebody can teach you the theory, but when it comes to programming, it's the practice that makes the master. And in my experience, Terrell, I'm here to be very optimistic and tell people that within I've read plenty of success stories from many communities where people have done this in 6 months to a year. And I mean, that's not a long time, Terrell, especially the fact that you can access this information, the resources, for free. This is the reason why I'm telling you, hey man, this is the best time for anyone to jump into technology, especially programming, because it's amazing, because it's one of the best paying fields, okay? And yet it's one of the fields that you can get everything for free.
Gotcha. Now, are there any particular places where you would say that people can go to access those free resources?
My number one choice of recommendation would be go to freecodecamp.org. Freecodecamp.org is a nonprofit organization that was developed by programmers that wanted to help people to program. But there are many other places, but this is the number one place I recommend anybody, because see what it is, Terrell, they have already a curriculum made up for you. So in other words, you follow what's already made for you. There are lessons, interactive lessons with third-party software already included. You don't need to worry about installation, worrying about buying different software. You don't need to worry about the books. I mean, they have everything there. They have a community, and they have that helps you. That there are so many, articles that you can read about people that started. And this is what's great. This is something else that I wanted to mention, Terrell, that I want people to know. When it comes to programming, there's a big community behind it. It's one of the most amazing things I've seen in our day and age. I don't see this happening too much with the doctors or the lawyers or the architects. I don't see this community where everybody comes and there's like places like GitHub that you can dump all your repositories and everybody can view them and learn from your work. I've never seen any other field that there is what you call open source. What open source is, Terrell, is places where programmers come and give up their time and talent and come up with software and leave it open source. In other words, for free. In other words, free access to anyone without having to pay. This is why I love this field, Terrell. This is the reason why what I'm sharing has only a desire and hard work that you need to bring to the table. Everything else is there. Everything else is there. And there are so many communities that are willing and happy to help people that are starting out. It's like amazing. It's like people actually like to help other people, and especially when you're starting out and you start, you post questions and you post, projects that you're working with. You get 80 people coming and, supporting you. It happens in LinkedIn. It happens in Twitter. It happens in Instagram. People are coming together and helping each other. It's like a beautiful thing, man. It's something that people don't know, and this is the reason why I'm sharing this message, man, because you're not alone. 20 years ago when I started, man, you were alone. You were you and your book and whatever luck you had, man, and whatever you could take and whatever you could do, man. I'm glad I didn't do it 20 years ago. I'll be honest. I'm happier that I'm doing it now with such big support, community support, software, free resources, free online, Coursera. There's so many, man. I mean, like I said, if you look, this is the secret. Go into the web and say how to become a programmer. And there's going to be a million things that they're going to show you. And many of the things are going to be there, like I said, free resources. You don't even need to use money, man. This is the reason why I'm here to promote that idea, man, that things are going to be changing. And we don't need, we fear what we don't understand, Terrell. We fear what we don't understand. So I think we should understand it instead of fearing it. Instead of allowing Hollywood to teach us what's going to happen. Let's get those Matrixes and the Terminator movies out of the head. And instead of talking about something we don't understand, let's start reading about it. Let's start recognizing that, AI, artificial intelligence is helping, for example, in the healthcare realm. It's given us possibilities, ideas, opportunities to make things better for humans. It's allowing us to share information like never before. You know what I mean? It's allowing us to connect in a way that we have never done before. I mean, you don't think this is beautiful that I don't have to be real close physically to you and you and I can have a great conversation and just share ideas? I mean, if that's not beautiful, I don't know what is.
Awesome. Well, I can definitely tell the passion and, like I said, the interest and the drive for not only yourself to, matriculate and grow in the field, but also to help others. So you mentioned about, sharing your message. Where can people follow you on social media to hear more about, you talking about this topic and just the insight that you share?
You can look at me up. The one that would be relevant to what we're sharing here mostly would be my LinkedIn profile, Dimitry Ortiz. In my LinkedIn profile, I have started making content and video creation relating to this. I am explaining things so that people can understand it. It can be approachable so that people don't, again, because you understand that when we don't understand, that's when we can do things. But when things become a little clearer, when things become a little, more familiar instead of being alienated, you get more courage into jumping into something. And this is the reason why I'm telling you, it doesn't matter the background, it doesn't matter your social economic, it doesn't matter if you went to university or not. By the way, I wanted to mention the biggest tech companies right now, Terrell, like the big cats, like we're talking about Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, you know, all these Googles, all these dominant tech companies that are out there that dominate the world right now, just mentioned, as well as, you know, the White House and everyone else, that you don't need a degree in order to work for them. So right now, that means that all you have to do is study. All you have to do is start trying to study and put your study to work for you, work on projects, test what you understand, test, you know, develop a desire to learn what's new, the new technology, the future, the present and the future that we have right now. And that's all you need, Terrell, because right now companies are giving, you know, it's no longer like myself that I have a degree, but you know what? If I didn't have a degree, it would be the same thing, because my degree is not teaching me how to code. It's myself, my desire, my work ethic, my study habits that are getting me to where I am and where I'm going right now. And right now I'm in the process of learning robotic process automation. So that's what I'm learning right now. See, that's completely different than what I've done so far. I've done web development in the past couple of years. And in the past, I've also been a systems engineer. So this is the reason why I'm here to share that, because anyone, you yourself, on your free time, if you add, you know, it's just like a language, you know, like a normal language. You give it an hour a day or so, or more if you can. And if you do it consistently, if you are, you know, if you give it a real chance and a real desire to try to learn something new, man, there are too many stories of success to not be confident to tell you that everybody can do it from any field, from any background.
Awesome. Well, Dimitry, you know, I thank you so much for coming on the show, telling your story, and then sharing the insight on just things that ways people can start their own technology journey, because it is something that is drastically changing, whether you're in business for yourself or even if you're in a career. I mean, I think the things you touched on were great. So thank you so much for coming onto the show and sharing your insight. We'll definitely share the link so people can follow you on LinkedIn and hear more about, you know, as you go in a little bit more detail and the next things that you're going to be doing and how you're navigating that journey of robotics.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do, trying to share the knowledge, trying to share the wealth. Is what I call it, because wealth is knowledge. And so, yeah, man, I appreciate you having me over, and this has been very pleasant.
Thanks for tuning in to the Business Talk Library. If you like what you heard and you want to hear more, be sure to click the subscribe button and follow us on all social media platforms as the Business Talk Library.